Mikel Arteta delivers a stark message about the title race to the Arsenal team as the Gunners run out of excuses. The Gunners' boss issues a clear rallying cry to his team after they lost crucial ground in the Premier League title race with the defeat to Aston Villa. This year was supposed to be different. Whether you love them or not, Arsenal disrupted the title race last season. They led the way for 248 days and still fell short. No team has ever matched that in Premier League history. However, there were mitigating circumstances that made such analysis a bit harsh. This was the first title challenge for most of Arsenal, including manager Mikel Arteta. There were also depth issues within the team. That's not to mention the fact that they were decimated by key player injuries at the wrong time in the race. This time, though, if you were to create conditions for a title challenge in a lab, Arteta couldn't ask for a much better set of circumstances. Yes, they have some tough games, but Arsenal is a year older and wiser. They've addressed their depth issues with smart summer acquisitions, and the only absentee from the team is Jurrien Timber. As the manager himself admits, they've grown as a team. So why have they fallen short in the two most pressured games of the season so far, just like last season? Arsenal can point to a congested fixture list. They certainly looked exhausted as they were completely outplayed in the late stages on Sunday. Fatigue can hardly be an excuse, considering Aston Villa had 2 fewer days of rest after midweek European exploits. After Arteta's third game in charge of Arsenal, a 2-0 win over Manchester United, at the end of a festive period that saw them play 3 times in 6 days, David Luiz said, "If you sleep happy, you can sleep 4 hours. It's better than sleeping 8 hours sad." While Arteta presided over his 263rd game in charge, those sentiments couldn't ring more true. The aura of invincibility emanating from Arsenal since the winter break seems to exhibit a glass jaw. Against Bayern Munich on Tuesday, after a bright start, they threw away all the self-belief and dominance that characterized their 2024 in favor of the frantic insecurity that embodied their games this 2023 season. It was a similar story against Aston Villa, where after failing to capitalize on their early dominance, they retreated into their shells and allowed Unai Emery's team to dominate. If you recall the draws against Liverpool and West Ham that marked the beginning of the end last season, they followed exactly the same formula. Arteta is determined to ensure the rest of the race doesn't follow suit. If you want to win championships, if you want to be in the Champions League, when you have these moments, you have to step up, said the Spaniard full-time. If not, it means you don't have a much-needed quality. Now it's a big test for us. In the last 2 games, Arsenal looked like a team that suddenly realized they could actually become national and European champions. If their performances serve as an indicator, that's a notion that terrifies them. It's something they'll have to fix immediately, and even then, it still might not be enough. Just like last season, they're in a position where they're praying for a favor from Manchester City in the title race, and if history is any guide, that doesn't happen very often. If that stroke of luck doesn't materialize, Arsenal players will have no more excuses. They will be solely to blame. The Arsenal must learn the title race lesson as Martin Odegaard's issue answers Aston Villa's mishaps. Martin Odegaard provides the context behind Arsenal's collapse in the second half against Aston Villa. A tale of 2 halves, indeed, but not without warnings. Arsenal was rightfully defeated by Aston Villa, but it could have easily been different if their first half dominance had translated into goals. The Gunners had their chances with Gabriel Jesus, Leandro Trossard, and Bukayo Saka coming close, but Ollie Watkins and Yuri Tielemans hit the woodwork before the 2 goals, leaving the Gunners' title hopes hanging by a thread. The question marks surrounding the second-half performance, however, need answers, and there are reasons for how things changed so dramatically. The key moments that stick in memory from the second half are Tielemans' shot hitting the woodwork and the 2 Villa goals. However, the forgotten start to the second half saw Gabriel Jesus attempt to win a penalty from Diego Carlos. The Brazilian appeared to be brought down by his compatriot, but it wasn't enough to give the Gunners what they were looking for. Martin Odegaard then had the chance from a free kick to shoot after John McGinn committed a foul at the edge of the box. However, Tielemans' shot got sandwiched between 2 other Arsenal attempts. The first was an Arsenal corner that saw the ball fall to Rice at the edge of the box, who took a strangely wild swing and a great opportunity that Jesus saw deflected by Emi Martinez. However, the game, for me, shifted when Martin Odegaard was taken off the pitch, not by substitution but by Watkins' chest kick. He would only exit for over 10 minutes, during which neither team created much, but the impact of the Norwegians' issue was definitely affecting Arsenal. By the way, in the Matchday blog, I wrote, "The signs are positive" at 70 minutes. Only at 84 minutes, 5 minutes after Odegaard's departure, did Leon Bailey break the deadlock. This reflection certainly made me look back not just at the second half but at the game differently. I was questioning full-time what had happened in the second period, but in reality, it was the final 10 minutes of normal time that proved the difference. Mikel Arteta brought on Emile Smith-Rowe for Odegaard, instead of whom at least I assume would be a player more akin to Fabio Vieira. He offered little, as did Takahiro Tomiyasu, who replaced Ben White. To me, the wrong fullback was substituted at the time. Arsenal was off-kilter when the corner they had initially defended came back, and Alexander Zinchenko was isolated on the right of Arsenal's box instead of the left, opening a huge gap for Bailey to sneak behind Rice unnoticed to tap in as nobody managed to clear the low cross, and Kai Havertz failed to stop it at its source. It was only with that goal that Arteta finally decided to take off Zinchenko. However, before he could, the game was sealed as Zinchenko lofted a ball up the field to Jorginho, who gave the ball away cheaply, and then Watkins was through, clear and bright on the finish. It was a goal that brought back memories of Leroy Sané's spells at Bayern Munich, which need addressing on Wednesday. Arsenal heads to Munich with the aim of defeating the former German champions, but they cannot afford to make such errors again, or it will be catastrophic. Zinchenko cannot start, and the nightmare of Sané from Jakub Kiwior means Tomiyasu will surely assume the left-back position. Returning to the game with Villa, however, it wasn't actually a disaster in the second half but rather a mess in the late stages. That doesn't make it any less frustrating and utterly devastating to see the points tossed aside, but what it perhaps provides is context and comparison. I recall seeing this team waste games last season, like the 3-3 draw at home with Southampton. Away at West Ham United, when we drew 2-2, a West Ham win seemed more likely than an Arsenal one. The home game against Brighton and the away game against Nottingham Forest were absolutely dreadful. So when I see statements like, Arsenal has thrown it all away again, or, it's last season 2.0, I simply don't see parallels. There's no déjà vu for me, not to mention that the club remains 2 points off the top and with a chance to reach the Champions League semi-finals. What I don't want, however, is for this slip-up to suddenly define the next 6 league games and how many remain in Europe. If this is the game that ends up costing us the title because we in Man City win the rest of our games, so be it. But if we throw this away here and have a subpar performance in the remaining games, it will be a very bitter pill to swallow. Arsenal, it's up to you.